Good morning, everybody. So, I've been wanting to share more about myself and my story for a while. And I always struggle how much to share on social media. But with sitting with sharing my story and being open and vulnerable with all of you, I really can't see a reason not to. First, for any of you that may be wanting to share more of your story after listening to me, I think it's really important to honor those parts of ourselves that are still in a healing process and ensure that by sharing these vulnerable parts of ourselves that we're not re-traumatizing or re-victimizing those parts of ourselves that are undergoing a healing journey. So some of you may know a little bit about my story, either clients that work with me or people that follow me. And I first want to preface this conversation with a trigger warning. If you're a survivor of birth trauma, if you're pregnant and about to have a baby, you're a survivor of sexual assault, this may not be the right video for you at this stage of your life. It may be, but I just want to put that out there to honor yourself. So, I'm a survivor of child abuse. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. When we grow up in a situation where we're really not honored by the people that are supposed to be caring for us, we really internalize that we're not worth much. So we end up becoming re-victimized because, and this isn't victim blaming, I think we may just not have the voice to say, I'm not okay with this, or this really doesn't honor my soul and my spirit. And I think everybody goes through these journeys for really important reasons. And if you're still in a healing journey, by saying that, I don't mean what happened to you is okay. But I know now that the people that felt that it was okay to victimize me in the way they did, even my own parents, were really just trying their best with the tools they had. And even if there was a malicious intent behind a seeking power or seeking domination for whatever they're trying to fill in their soul, I really think that at our core, we're all really quite beautiful. And what happens is that either through inherited family lineage or our own life experience, or both, that beautiful part of us becomes burdened and burdened and burdened. And those burdened parts of ourselves seek to feel okay. Again, not justifying anything that happened to me, in the seek of that self-soothing of those people. But through my healing, I've come to understand their perspective a little bit more, while honoring the parts of me that are angry or were angry, that are victimized, and that it's okay for them to feel that way. So, how did this present in my life? For anybody that may have known me from like 2007 onwards, on the outside, I may have looked like I had it all together. I was a fitness instructor, a personal trainer, quite lean. From a societal perspective, that's highly valued. I graduated top of my class. I was involved in everything. I really kept myself busy in order to feel worthy, to feel that I was okay. before returning to university, I was really not in a great spot. I was with people that did not have my best interest at heart. They were burdened, they were suffering, and I had to look myself in the mirror one day and say, I don't want to live this way. I ended up having a near fatal car accident in 2006, I believe. And that near-death experience really fueled something in me that I was spared for a really important reason. Now, I went to university, really dove in this quest to prove that I was worth something, and I did really great things. I won a lot of awards, I got really big scholarships, but I still didn't at my core feel worthy. And when I made one of the biggest life moves for me, moving to Kitchener-Waterloo, planning to get married and starting my master's, a thesis-based master's, which is more of a long haul than a sprint like undergrad, I lost my identity completely and I fell apart. I fell completely apart. I think at my lowest, I was thinking of really self-harm and not being here anymore, and I think I stayed in bed for probably about 2 weeks, and that's not an exaggeration. I think I told my thesis advisor at the time I had the flu, which again speaks to the bigger picture of mental health and how we can't be vulnerable. My soul was telling me that I needed to tiptoe and start to approach this healing journey. And I did, and I struggled with different professionals giving me different diagnoses and going on different medications, and at the time feeling really frustrated and really lost. Looking back, I know everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to in order for me to continue my healing. And I am by no means finished this journey. Will I ever finish this journey? I really don't think that there is a finish line, really. I think that these experiences come to us so we can grow and affect others, and for a bigger design that we might not know until we pass, really. So after my master's, I went to physiotherapy school, and I was still going through my healing journey, doing cognitive behavioral therapy, continuing with physical activity. Still had a lot of body shame, a lot of shame about myself. Going to physiotherapy school, I'll be completely honest with you, made it worse, if not better. I already didn't trust my body, and now I was learning all these pathoanatomy and everything that can go wrong with our bodies. And I remember whatever unit I was in. So for example, I'll say the neurophys unit. Our brains are so powerful. I would start to get neuro symptoms. And really perseverate over, oh my gosh, I can't trust my body, so my body is going to be broken. And I didn't at the time realize that was what was happening. I said, physio school is hard. I'm really anxious. Like, all these people are really smart. They're all better than me. But looking back, I could see what was happening there too. While in physiotherapy school, I was with a psychiatrist that gave me the diagnosis of complex PTSD. That felt a little safer to me than like the bipolar, or I think borderline personality disorder someone diagnosed you with. So I felt a little safer with her. She was lovely, and with medication could really help me as well. And I was doing some counseling in physiotherapy school, but I wasn't really resonating with my counselors. There's several times in physiotherapy school I just didn't think I was going to make it. I didn't think I was worthy of this life. But I made it through and I became a physiotherapist and started working in orthopedic setting. when I started work too, the story was always the same for me, as I'm not good enough, I'm not as good as these people, what am I doing, imposter syndrome. With this, I think I described it to my most current counselor as this kind of feeling I was walking around like my world was going to fall apart at any moment. And that makes sense. Growing up with abuse and trauma and chaos, and then being re-abused over and over, and having like a severe car accident, actually two of them. No wonder my soul is waiting for the shoe to drop. So when did I take a turn in an aha moment? Well, after Ivy was born, her birth experience, being a sexual assault survivor, it was a traumatic experience for a variety of reasons. I had a male OB who did not honor my body whatsoever with my induction process and re-traumatized me, and then another OB, a locum OB, who kept re-traumatizing me during my birthing process. My recovery was so hard because of that. But again, a learning process to rehab myself after such a rough labor and delivery. And I remember it was in the summer. I think Ivy was about 18 months. I was in a yoga class and I was sinking deeper and deeper into my body. And I had this visualization of me swimming down deeper and deeper into my soul. And I could see the light inside of me. And it was covered in like this dark mud black thing, right? And I'm in a yoga class of like 30 people at Movati, and I start bawling in Shavasana. A little embarrassing, like from an ego standpoint, like, oh my gosh, I'm crying. But that was such a big aha moment for me. And I cried all the way home, and I got home and my husband was like, what happened? But I could visualize that my soul was burdened, and it felt right here in my body. And when I get anxious, it's all right here. I have this protective posture, it's all in my neck. So it was this really great experience from a body perspective. So when I became pregnant with Clark, in my first trimester, my soul was just like, girl, I'm going to push you harder. And I was having a ton of unmanageable anxiety. I remember being at work and seeing a client and sitting down and just in a fog of anxiety with all my colleagues around me saying like, you can't do this. Like, you can't clinically think clearly, and all those imposter syndrome things that go along with it. And I said to my midwife, look, I need help. Like, I'm really struggling here. And she connected me with a fabulous psychotherapist. Unfortunately, she's not taking clients, but she works through a paradigm called internal family systems. And in Guelph, if you live in Guelph, I know that there's a lot of people that work with internal family systems theory. So with Dr. Riza Adams, we started in a meditative practice to unpack those burdened parts of myself through love, kindness, and understanding. And I've taken that lens and applied it to absolutely everything I do. Thinking about where I was at the beginning of my healing journey, if you would have told me when I was in like 25, 26, like, you're gonna meditate and step back and witness these parts of yourself that have been extremely traumatized, I would have been like, you're like, what? Like, that's so hippy dippy. I don't resonate with that. I wouldn't even use that term at the time. And it's interesting because I've done yoga since I was 16 years old. But the idea of meditation for me, especially like a high drive, high protected woman, it was just like, no thank you, that's not me. Like, give me a spin bike or like I'll do burpees until I can't move and then I'll feel okay. So, for any of you that have stuck around this long in this story time, that your initial thought with anything mindfulness, anything exploratory is just like, hell no, I'd really recommend to just be curious. And the talk therapy, the cognitive behavioral therapy, the dialectical behavioral therapy, all that stuff is a really good intro to a healing journey. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? So in my healing sessions, I'm essentially in deep meditation and trying to step back with these really traumatized parts of myself. And it's really hard to do because I'm sitting with really parts of myself that have been extremely victimized and are just so vulnerable and so hurt. But it has been extremely transformative for me. So how does it look in my day-to-day life? Before, when my children would be reminding me maybe something of my past from a neurological perspective, it's not even that I'm having a cognitive recollection of a memory, but all of a sudden my chest gets tighter, everything compresses, I might feel pressure in my pelvic floor because I've really noticed a trauma gripping pattern. I grip down and I push down, and then I'll get a hemorrhoid or rectal pain or something like that. But what I'm noticing is that I can just have a little bit of separation to say, what's happening in my body, and then go into that self energy of love, kindness, compassion towards that part, and just taking a couple deep breaths. Now, I'm not doing necessarily trauma healing in that moment, maybe I am, but I'm at least starting to have some separation of self. And sometimes, for example, this Saturday, I had a trauma cycle. My husband and I weren't quite sure. Oh, I'm getting called by a little one. 1 second. All right, Barrett, I think, I don't remember quite where I was. So basically I I know where I was. So in my day-to-day life, yes, I know. So this Saturday I was in a trauma cycle, and I knew I was in a trauma cycle, but I could not unblend, and I wasn't quite sure where it came from either. Sometimes it's really hard to delineate, like, what was that trigger? And for a long time, I would really perseverate over the why. Why is this happening to me? As I've continued to heal, I have a deep understanding of the why. But that's not necessarily what has helped me. Honoring those parts of myself, that why, has been helpful. But when, for example, on Saturday, I'm like, okay, this is a trauma cycle, I know this feeling, I just asked for kindness, asked to try to step back from myself. And it probably took about half of the day. It was a pretty big trauma trigger, but I was able to reground and give whatever that part was the space she needed. And when before, that would have been a recurrent panic attack cycle of, like, on the floor in a ball, hyperventilating and crying. So I can see progress there, and it's so beautiful. Now, for any of you that may be postpartum and struggling, or pregnant and struggling, honoring our family history. In your history, did your mother struggle when she was pregnant or postpartum? What happened in your family history can be really enlightening as well. I hope this is helpful for someone. It may not be. I can't believe this is 19 minutes already. And I'm just sitting with parts of myself right now to see, are they okay with me putting this out there? And I think they are. It's really vulnerable to do this, and I didn't necessarily tell nitty-gritty details of my trauma. I don't think that's necessarily helpful for anybody. I guess I just want to put it out there that for any of my followers that might be looking at my content and saying, oh my gosh, like she's so happy, she has everything together, that is absolutely not the case. From a place of love and kindness, like none of us really have it together. Even the ones that really seem like they have it together, we're all just these beautiful little vulnerable souls that are in these meat suits floating around on this rock. And some of our journeys will be harder than others. If anyone wants to reach out to me to talk about this more, I want to give you permission to do so in my DMs. Also, I have a link to my website on my bio, and my email is there. Feel free to reach out, because with my journey, I didn't do this alone. I am fiercely independent as a woman. Like, I've had to be since I was a child, because I had to look after myself because nobody else had the capacity to do so. So reach out. It's not a bother to me, because honestly, we are all in this together, and it's through each other and through that vulnerability that we heal the world. And if we can heal ourselves, we heal our families, we heal the society, and that's how we heal the world. Kindness for you all, and if you made it this far, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna send this out to the internet now. Have a great week.